Your mother, the woman who has always been your rock, is lying unconscious on the operating table. She's about to undergo a routine surgery, nothing too serious, just a minor procedure that should have her back on her feet in no time. But then, something happens. The surgeon steps out, his face pale, his hands trembling. He tells you that what was supposed to be a simple operation has turned into something far more complex. They found something unexpected, something that shouldn't have been there. Your mind races, heart pounding in your chest. What does this mean? How is this possible? And then, the bombshell, your mother had a twin. A twin who never made it into the world. This isn't just a story, it's a reality for many families who have experienced the shock of discovering a hidden twin during a routine medical procedure. It's a phenomenon that has baffled doctors and scientists for years, a phenomenon that raises more questions than answers. But what does this mean for you? For your family? For your understanding of life, identity, and the mysteries of the human body? This story isn't just about a medical anomaly, it's about the profound impact such a revelation can have on a family, on relationships, and on the very fabric of our existence. In this video, we're going to delve deep into this extraordinary tale. We'll explore the science behind hidden twins, the emotional journey of discovering a sibling you never knew existed, and the profound implications such a discovery can have on one's sense of self. We'll hear from medical experts, psychologists, and families who have lived through this experience. And we'll answer the burning question, what happens when you find out you had a twin all along? So, stay with us. Because by the end of this video, you won't just understand the science behind hidden twins, you'll feel the emotional weight of what it means to discover a lost sibling. You won't just learn about a medical anomaly, you'll experience the profound impact it has on a family's journey. And you won't just hear a story, you'll live it. Are you ready to uncover the truth? To explore the hidden corners of human existence? To embark on a journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew about life, identity, and family? Then keep watching. Because this is a story you won't want to miss. But be warned, what you're about to discover may change the way you see the world forever. As the days passed, the weight of the revelation began to settle in. What was initially a medical anomaly had evolved into a profound mystery, intertwining the threads of identity, family, and the unknown. The discovery of a hidden twin within a loved one is not merely a medical curiosity, it's a journey into the depths of human existence, challenging our understanding of life itself. This story is not just about a physical anomaly, it's about the emotional and psychological odyssey that follows such a revelation. The initial shock of the discovery was just the beginning. As the family grappled with the implications, questions began to surface. How could something so significant go unnoticed for so long? What does this mean for the family dynamics? And perhaps most hauntingly, what if there are more secrets hidden within? The answers seemed just out of reach, like fragments of a puzzle scattered in the dark. In the weeks that followed, the family sought answers. Medical experts were consulted, each offering their own theories and explanations. Some suggested that the hidden twin was a rare condition known as fetus in fetu, where a malformed twin is found within the body of the other. Others proposed that it was a case of parasitic twinning, where one twin fails to develop fully and becomes dependent on the other. Despite the various theories, a definitive explanation remained elusive. Smithsonian Magazine. +2. The Sun. +2. Wikipedia. +2. Wikipedia. +4. Money Control. +4. Life Science. +4. As the family delved deeper into the mystery, they uncovered unsettling truths. Old medical records were examined, and forgotten conversations resurfaced. Hints of a family history marked by secrecy and unexplained events began to emerge. Was this hidden twin a mere anomaly, or was it a symptom of something more profound? The more they uncovered, the more questions arose, each one leading to another, creating a labyrinth of uncertainty. Wikipedia. The emotional toll was immense. Family relationships were tested as long-buried resentments and fears came to light. The discovery of the hidden twin had not only unearthed a physical anomaly but had also unearthed the hidden fractures within the family unit. Trust, once taken for granted, was now questioned. The very foundation of their shared history seemed to be shifting beneath their feet. In the midst of this turmoil, the family faced a choice: to continue seeking answers, no matter how unsettling, or to leave the past buried and move forward. But as the saying goes, the truth will out. And so, the journey continued, each step revealing more about the hidden twin and the family that had carried its secret for so long. As the story unfolds, the lines between the known and the unknown blur. What began as a medical mystery has transformed into a profound exploration of identity, family, and the secrets that shape us. The hidden twin is no longer just a physical anomaly, it is a symbol of the hidden parts of ourselves, the parts we may not even know exist. This is a story that challenges our understanding of life and identity. It asks us to confront the unknown and to question the narratives we have constructed about ourselves and our families. It reminds us that beneath the surface, there are depths yet to be explored, mysteries yet to be uncovered. As you continue watching, prepare to delve deeper into this extraordinary journey. The path ahead is fraught with revelations that will challenge your perceptions and stir your emotions. This is not just a story about a hidden twin, it's a story about the hidden parts of us all. Stay with us as we continue to unravel the mystery, one layer at a time. The journey is just beginning, and the answers are waiting to be discovered. As the weeks unfolded, the family found themselves ensnared in a labyrinth of uncertainty and mounting tension. What had initially seemed like a rare medical anomaly had evolved into a complex web of questions, each more perplexing than the last. The revelation of a hidden twin within their mother's body had shattered their understanding of family history, but the journey to uncover the full truth was proving to be far more treacherous than anticipated. In their quest for answers, the family turned to medical records, hoping to find clues that would shed light on the mystery. However, they soon discovered that key documents had inexplicably vanished from the archives. Attempts to retrieve them were met with resistance and vague explanations, deepening the sense of unease. It was as if someone or something was deliberately obscuring the past, leaving them to navigate a fog of half-truths and omissions. Further complicating matters was the appearance of a new figure in their lives, a distant relative who had recently reconnected with the family. At first, their presence seemed benign, even comforting. But as time passed, subtle inconsistencies began to surface. The relative's knowledge of family history was curiously selective, and their questions about the mother's health took on an unnerving edge. Was this person genuinely interested in reconnecting, or were they probing for information to further some hidden agenda? As the family delved deeper into their investigation, they uncovered a long-buried secret. Many years ago, the mother had been involved in a controversial medical study that aimed to explore the boundaries of human development. The study had been shrouded in secrecy, with participants signing non-disclosure agreements and the results never published. Could this study have been linked to the anomalous discovery of the hidden twin? And if so, what ethical boundaries had been crossed in the pursuit of knowledge? The more they uncovered, the more questions arose, each one leading to another, creating a tangled web of intrigue and suspicion. The family found themselves at a crossroads. Should they continue digging into the past, risking further alienation and potential danger, or should they accept the fragments of truth they had uncovered and move forward? The path ahead was uncertain, and the stakes had never been higher. In the midst of this turmoil, the family received an anonymous tip-off. A package had been left at their doorstep, containing a series of photographs and documents that appeared to be related to the long-forgotten medical study. Among the items was a photograph of the mother, taken during the study, standing alongside a group of researchers. But what caught their attention was the figure standing next to her, a man whose face was obscured, but whose posture and presence seemed eerily familiar. Could this be the missing piece of the puzzle? And if so, what role had this mysterious individual played in the events that had led to the discovery of the hidden twin? As the family pored over the new evidence, they realized that the truth was more elusive than ever. Each revelation seemed to open up more questions than answers, and the line between friend and foe had become increasingly blurred. They were no longer just uncovering the past, they were entangled in a complex narrative that spanned decades, involving secrets, betrayals, and a quest for knowledge that had come at a steep price. The journey to uncover the full truth was far from over, and the family knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and unexpected twists. But one thing was certain: they could not turn back now. The mysteries of the past had a way of resurfacing, and they were determined to face them head-on, no matter where the path might lead. As they prepared to confront the next chapter of their investigation, they received another unexpected development. The mysterious relative had vanished without a trace. Attempts to contact them were met with silence, and inquiries to other family members yielded no information. Had they been a part of the unfolding mystery, or had their disappearance been orchestrated to further complicate matters? The family's resolve was tested, but they knew they had come too far to abandon their quest for the truth. The stage was set for the next phase of their journey, a journey that would take them deeper into the shadows of the past, where long-hidden secrets awaited discovery, and where the line between reality and illusion would continue to blur. The answers they sought were within reach, but the cost of uncovering them remained uncertain. All they knew for sure was that the truth, however elusive, was worth the pursuit. And so, with renewed determination, they pressed on, ready to face whatever revelations lay ahead, knowing that the path to the truth was often as mysterious as the truth itself. As the family delved deeper into the enigma surrounding their mother's hidden twin, they found themselves entangled in a web of mysteries that seemed to stretch back decades. The disappearance of the mysterious relative had left more questions than answers, and the newly discovered photograph from the long-forgotten medical study only deepened the intrigue. But just as they thought they were beginning to piece together the puzzle, another unexpected development occurred that would complicate matters even further. One evening, as the family gathered to discuss their findings, a knock echoed through the house. Opening the door, they were met with an unexpected sight. A package, unmarked and weathered, sat on the doorstep. Inside, they found a collection of documents and photographs that seemed to mirror their own investigation. Among the items was a letter, its contents cryptic and unsettling. The truth is more than you can bear. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. The implications were immediate and chilling. Someone else knew about their mother's hidden twin, and they were watching. But who? And why? The family had already uncovered unsettling truths about the past, but this new development suggested that they were not the only ones seeking answers. As they pondered the meaning of the letter, another revelation came to light. A distant relative, who had been estranged from the family for years, had recently returned to town. Their sudden reappearance coincided with the timing of the mysterious package. Was this relative involved in the unfolding mystery? Or was their return merely coincidental? The family's investigation had already uncovered long-buried secrets, but now they faced the possibility that someone else had been orchestrating events from the shadows. The line between ally and adversary had become increasingly blurred, and trust was in short supply. Determined to uncover the truth, the family decided to confront the estranged relative. They arranged a meeting, hoping to gain insight into their motives and any knowledge they might possess about the hidden twin. But as the meeting approached, another unsettling development occurred. The estranged relative disappeared without a trace. Attempts to contact them were met with silence, and inquiries to other family members yielded no information. The family's quest for answers had become a perilous journey, fraught with deception, hidden motives, and unanswered questions. Each revelation seemed to open up more mysteries, and the line between truth and illusion had become increasingly difficult to discern. They were no longer just uncovering the past, they were entangled in a complex narrative that spanned decades, involving secrets, betrayals, and a quest for knowledge that had come at a steep price. As they prepared to confront the next chapter of their investigation, they received another unexpected development. The estranged relative had vanished without a trace. Attempts to contact them were met with silence, and inquiries to other family members yielded no information. Had they been a part of the unfolding mystery, or had their disappearance been orchestrated to further complicate matters? The family's resolve was tested, but they knew they had come too far to abandon their quest for the truth. The stage was set for the next phase of their journey, a journey that would take them deeper into the shadows of the past, where long-hidden secrets awaited discovery, and where the line between reality and illusion would continue to blur. The answers they sought were within reach, but the cost of uncovering them remained uncertain. All they knew for sure was that the truth, however elusive, was worth the pursuit. And so, with renewed determination, they pressed on, ready to face whatever revelations lay ahead, knowing that the path to the truth was often as mysterious as the truth itself. The night had fallen heavy and silent, a blanket of darkness that seemed to press against the windows, muffling the world outside. Inside, the house was eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards settling. The family sat together in the living room, the weight of their recent discoveries hanging in the air like a storm cloud, ready to burst. They had uncovered so much, yet the more they learned, the more questions arose. The photograph of their mother standing with the mysterious researcher, the cryptic letter warning them to stop digging, the sudden disappearance of the estranged relative, it all pointed to something far more sinister than they had imagined. Then, the phone rang. It was an unlisted number, the kind that sent a chill down your spine before you even answered. With a glance exchanged among them, the mother picked up the receiver, her hand trembling slightly. A voice on the other end, low and distorted, spoke only a few words: "Stop looking. You're in danger." The line went dead before she could respond. The room fell into a stunned silence, each person processing the threat in their own way. The mother set the phone down slowly, her face pale. Her mind raced. Who could it be? Was it someone from the past, someone connected to the hidden twin? Or was it a warning from someone who knew too much? The possibilities were endless, and none of them were comforting. The next morning, the unease lingered, thick in the air. As the family gathered around the kitchen table, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy, the doorbell rang. A package, unmarked and wrapped in plain brown paper, sat on the doorstep. Inside, they found a single photograph, their mother, younger and smiling, standing beside a man they didn't recognize. The back of the photo was inscribed with a date and a location, coordinates that led to an abandoned building on the outskirts of town. The discovery sent a ripple of fear through the family. What was their mother involved in? Who was this man? And why had someone gone to such lengths to send this photograph? The questions piled up, each one more unsettling than the last. Determined to find answers, the family decided to visit the location indicated by the coordinates. The building was old and decrepit, its windows boarded up and its walls covered in graffiti. Inside, they found remnants of something long abandoned: old medical equipment, files scattered on the floor, and photographs pinned to the walls. Among the photos was one of their mother, this time with the mysterious man, both wearing lab coats, standing in front of a sign that read Project Genesis. The realization hit them like a ton of bricks. Their mother had been part of some secret project, something that involved experimentation and secrecy. But what was the purpose? And why had she never spoken of it? The answers seemed just out of reach, taunting them with their elusiveness. As they left the building, a black SUV pulled up beside them. The window rolled down, revealing a man in a suit, his expression unreadable. "You need to stop," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You're digging into things that are better left alone." Before they could respond, the SUV sped off, disappearing down the road. The encounter left them shaken. Who was this man? What did he know? And why had he warned them? The sense of danger was no longer a distant possibility, it was real, immediate, and closing in around them. Back at home, the family tried to regroup, to make sense of the chaos that had become their lives. But the threats, the warnings, the mysterious figures, they couldn't be ignored. Someone was watching them, someone who didn't want the truth to come out. But who? And what were they willing to do to keep their secrets hidden? The answers remained elusive, slipping further away with each passing day. But one thing was certain: they were no longer just uncovering a family secret. They had stumbled onto something much larger, much darker, and far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. And as they stood on the precipice of this new, terrifying reality, they realized that the truth they sought might come at a cost they weren't prepared to pay. The days that followed were a blur of tension and confusion, the family's every move shadowed by the looming threat of unknown forces. The cryptic warnings, the unsettling encounters with mysterious figures, the documents and photographs, they all pointed to something vast and sinister, something far beyond what they had initially believed. It was as if they had stumbled upon a truth so powerful that it had the potential to unravel not just their family, but the very fabric of their existence. But what was the truth? And how deep did the conspiracy run? Every step forward felt like stepping further into a trap, the walls closing in around them. It was late one night, after hours of combing through old family records and piecing together the scattered fragments of the past, that the breakthrough came. It wasn't from a document or a photograph. It wasn't a mysterious letter or a threatening phone call. It came from an unlikely source, someone they thought they could trust. Sarah, the mother's longtime friend, had always been a steady presence in their lives. A shoulder to lean on. Someone who had watched them grow up, who knew their family history inside and out. But when Sarah walked through the door that evening, her face was pale, her eyes filled with a storm of emotions. It was clear something had shifted, something deep and unsettling. As she sat down with the family, her hands trembling as they rested on her lap, the words that came from her mouth would change everything. "You've been looking in the wrong places," she said quietly, the weight of her confession sinking into the room like a stone in water. "What you think you know about your mother, it's not the whole truth." For a moment, the room was frozen, the family unable to process the enormity of what Sarah had just said. They had trusted her, relied on her. She had always been there, through thick and thin. But now, her words, her admission, seemed to shatter the very foundation of their understanding of everything that had been happening. The shock was overwhelming. But Sarah wasn't finished. She took a deep breath, clearly struggling with what she was about to say. "There's a reason your mother never talked about the past. She didn't just forget, she was forced to keep quiet. That project, Project Genesis, it wasn't just some medical experiment. It was a cover-up. And your mother was more involved than you could ever imagine." Her voice dropped to a whisper, as though saying the words aloud made them somehow more real, more dangerous. She didn't just have a hidden twin. She was part of something much darker. They've been watching you, waiting for you to dig deep enough to find the truth. But now that you're here, now that you're this close, there's no turning back. The room felt like it was closing in on them, the air thick with the realization that everything they thought they knew had been a lie. Sarah's confession left more questions than answers. Who was she really protecting? And why had she kept these truths from them all this time? The unsettling sense that something wasn't right gnawed at their minds, but they didn't have time to process it. The tension was unbearable, each new revelation more terrifying than the last. The shift in the atmosphere was palpable as the pieces began to fall into place. What had initially seemed like a series of isolated, strange events now appeared to be part of a larger, more complex puzzle. The family's investigation into the hidden twin had never been just about uncovering a buried family secret. It was about something far more dangerous, a conspiracy that reached deeper than they had ever imagined. A conspiracy that included people they thought they could trust. But Sarah wasn't the only one who had been hiding things. No one was who they appeared to be. As if on cue, the doorbell rang, its echo sharp and insistent in the tense silence of the room. The mother, her face drained of color, slowly walked to the door, her hand shaking as she reached for the handle. When she opened it, there stood another unexpected figure, a man she had not seen in years. Someone she thought she had left behind. Someone whose return was anything but coincidental. His presence, standing there on their doorstep, filled her with a mix of dread and recognition. "I'm sorry it took me so long to reach out," he said, his voice low and calm. "But you need to know the full story, or they'll finish what they started. You're all in danger now. Not just because of the hidden twin, but because of what your mother was forced to do. What she agreed to." The man stepped inside, and the tension in the room escalated to a breaking point. It wasn't just the words he said, it was the fact that his appearance confirmed everything Sarah had hinted at. This man knew things about their family, about their mother, that they couldn't possibly have known. The story they had been trying to piece together wasn't just about uncovering some medical experiment gone wrong, it was about the cost of secrets so dangerous that even now, they could bring down everything in their path. But what did this all mean? How had their mother been involved in something so dark? And who else was involved? The questions piled up, each one more urgent than the last, as the family tried to make sense of what had just been revealed. Who could they trust? Was Sarah involved in this hidden conspiracy, or was she a victim of it, too? And the biggest question of all, what would the people behind this twisted project do now that the family had begun to uncover the truth? As the man spoke in hushed tones, outlining the threats they now faced, it became clear that the truth was far darker and more complex than they could have ever imagined. With each new piece of information, the world around them began to tilt, the reality they had known slipping through their fingers like sand. Every connection they made, every step they took, seemed to lead them further into a web of deception and danger, one that no one was prepared for. And as the family tried to grasp the magnitude of what was happening, they couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. Their investigation had just taken a turn into the darkest unknown, and the only certainty now was that nothing, and no one, was as they seemed. The days that followed Sarah's confession and the man's unexpected return were filled with chaos, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of dread. It was as though the ground beneath them was constantly shifting, with no solid foundation to stand on anymore. Every step they took felt like a misstep, every question they asked seemed to lead to more questions instead of answers. The family had begun to feel the weight of their investigation, realizing they were no longer just uncovering long-buried secrets, they were in the midst of something far darker, something that had the power to destroy not just their family, but everything they had ever known. The more they learned, the more the stakes grew, and soon, they found themselves facing decisions that no one should ever have to make. It was one late afternoon, as the family was gathered around the kitchen table, discussing what they had learned, that the phone rang again. The call came from a private number, and this time, the voice on the other end was even more familiar than before, Sarah's. But this wasn't the same Sarah they had trusted. This was someone else entirely, someone whose desperation and fear were unmistakable in the tone of her voice. She didn't sound like the steady, calm figure they had known all their lives. Instead, she was frantic, trembling on the other end of the line as she urged them to listen closely. "You have to stop, all of you. I'm begging you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They've already started looking for you. It's too late for me, but it's not too late for you. The truth is too dangerous, it's bigger than you know. If you keep going down this path, you'll never get out. You won't make it." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and then the words that followed hit harder than anything else they had heard. "I'm not who you think I am. I never was. I didn't just help your mother keep the secrets of the past, I helped hide them." The silence in the room was suffocating as the family processed her words. Sarah had always been the one they turned to for guidance, for comfort, for answers. Now, it seemed like everything they had ever known about her had been a lie. But why? Why would she betray them? Why had she been hiding her role in this twisted web of secrecy for all these years? Before they could respond, Sarah hung up, leaving them in stunned silence. The phone call had shaken them to the core, but the realization was worse than the fear. They had trusted Sarah with their lives, with their deepest secrets, and now, she had turned against them. The same woman who had warned them to stop looking for the truth was the one who had been an active part of keeping it buried. And then came the ultimatum. That same night, as the family sat trying to make sense of everything, they received a letter. It was thick, sealed with a wax stamp, and there was no return address. It seemed almost ceremonial, like it had been delivered with great care, despite the urgency of its contents. The letter was simple, but the message inside was chilling. "You've crossed a line," it read. "You're in over your heads, and there's no way back. You've uncovered the past, but some truths are meant to stay buried. If you continue your search for the truth, if you press any further, you'll lose everything and everyone. Consider this your final warning. The choice is yours." They had been given an ultimatum: their safety, or the truth. If they wanted to end the threat to their lives, they could walk away from the investigation, forget about the hidden twin, forget about their mother's past, and go back to the lives they had known before this all began. But if they chose to continue digging into the mystery, if they chose to pursue the truth, they would be placing themselves, and everyone they loved, in mortal danger. The message was clear: there would be no way out. But what choice did they really have? The fear gnawed at them, the weight of the decision pressing on their chests. Could they turn their back on the truth? Could they live with themselves knowing they had abandoned the search for answers, knowing they had allowed the people behind this dark conspiracy to get away with it? But what if continuing down this path meant losing everything they had left? What if they lost each other, or worse, what if they lost their lives in the process? As they sat there, torn between fear and the desire for the truth, the consequences of their decisions began to feel overwhelming. It wasn't just about solving a mystery anymore. It wasn't just about their mother's past, or the hidden twin, or even the mysterious Project Genesis that had been buried for so long. It was about survival. It was about choosing between their safety and the unknown, between risking everything to uncover a truth that could destroy them, or giving in to fear and walking away from everything they had started. They were trapped between two equally terrifying choices, both with consequences they couldn't fully understand. Each family member had their own internal battle, their own thoughts, their own fears. The mother, who had already sacrificed so much to protect her family, now found herself asking if the truth was worth the risk. The others, too, felt the weight of the decision, each one questioning whether they were strong enough to face whatever lay at the end of this dark journey. Could they continue in their search for the truth, knowing the danger it posed? Or was it better to walk away, to pretend they had never uncovered what they had? But just as the conversation reached a breaking point, another knock echoed through the door. Another piece to the puzzle. Another person who might have answers, or another person whose involvement in the web of lies would force them into an even darker corner. No one knew who it would be or what they would bring, but one thing was certain: the tension had reached its breaking point. The stakes were higher than ever before, and there was no turning back now. The tension in the house had never been more suffocating, the air thick with the weight of decisions that could alter everything. The phone call from Sarah, the letter threatening their lives, and the face of the man who had returned from their mother's past had all converged into one horrifying reality. They were part of something much bigger than they had ever imagined. It wasn't just their family at risk now, it was everyone who had ever come into contact with the shadows of the conspiracy that had been unfolding in the dark corners of their lives. What had started as a search for a hidden twin had quickly spiraled into an intricate web of betrayal, manipulation, and a sinister truth that stretched far beyond the walls of their home. They hadn't even begun to understand the full scope of what they were up against when another shocking revelation hit them like a tidal wave. It came when they were on the brink of making a decision, the kind of decision that could save them or ruin them. The family was gathered in the living room, everyone still processing the devastating weight of Sarah's betrayal. The choice to stop or keep going felt impossible, each option leading to unknown dangers. But then, out of nowhere, a series of knocks broke the stillness, one after the other, each louder and more urgent than the last. The door swung open before they could even move. Standing there was another figure from their past, a figure they had never expected to see again, their estranged uncle. But it wasn't the same man they remembered. His eyes were cold, filled with secrets he wasn't ready to reveal. He had been missing for years, a ghost who vanished after some kind of falling out with the family. And yet, here he was, his expression one of grim resolution. Before anyone could speak, he stepped inside, his presence heavy with an energy that immediately put them all on edge. "You've made a mistake," he said, his voice low and threatening. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." The air felt colder, darker, as the truth began to sink in. "You don't know the scale of this," he continued, each word cutting through the room like a knife. "It's not just about your mother. It's not just about a hidden twin or a failed experiment. You've been playing into their hands the entire time. Your investigation wasn't random. You were meant to find it." The family stood frozen, their minds scrambling to catch up with the sudden onslaught of information. What did he mean? How could they have been manipulated without knowing it? He went on, his voice lowering to a near whisper. "Your mother wasn't the only one involved. The people who started Project Genesis, they have eyes everywhere. They've had their fingers in every corner of your lives, watching, waiting, pulling the strings. And now, you've uncovered too much. You've disrupted the plan. They'll stop at nothing to silence you, to protect what's been hidden." The realization hit like a ton of bricks. This was bigger than any of them had imagined. The conspiracy wasn't just a few shadowy figures lurking in the background, it was an enormous, far-reaching network, one that stretched into places they couldn't have even fathomed. And they were right at the center of it. Every step they had taken, every question they had asked, had been part of some larger game they hadn't been aware of. What had started as a family mystery had now become a battle for survival. But the worst part wasn't the revelation of the conspiracy itself. It was the realization that someone they had trusted, someone they had thought was on their side, was already working against them. Their uncle, the man who had seemingly appeared out of nowhere, wasn't there to help them, he was part of the very organization they had been trying to uncover. His betrayal stung worse than anything they had encountered so far, the truth that someone close to them had been working with the enemy shattering whatever trust they had left. The family scrambled to make sense of it, but before they could react, there was another knock at the door, sharper this time, almost frantic. They opened it, only to find one of their own standing on the doorstep, someone they had counted on, someone who had been part of their investigation from the start. It was Sarah. She had come to them not as a savior, but as a warning. Her face was pale, her eyes wild with fear. "They're coming," she gasped, her voice barely audible. "You've made a mistake. It's already too late." But it was the next words that sent everything spiraling further into chaos. "The man who's been guiding you, the one who said he knew the truth, is not who he says he is. He's been playing you from the beginning." The world around them seemed to crumble. The man who had been helping them piece together their mother's past, the one they had thought was their ally, he was part of the conspiracy too. They had been led down a path they couldn't escape from, every move they made pushed by someone who had been pulling the strings all along. As the family stood there, overwhelmed by the onslaught of revelations, the sense of danger grew even more urgent. Their trust had been betrayed at every turn, and now they were trapped. They were in too deep, caught in a game with no way out, and the people who had been guiding them were the same ones who had been orchestrating their downfall from the start. The phone rang again, but this time, it wasn't a threat. It was an ultimatum, no longer a choice between their safety and the truth, but a choice between life and death. "You've uncovered too much," the voice on the other end said, steady and cold. "You need to stop now, or we will come for you. All of you." In that moment, as the walls seemed to close in around them, it was clear that their investigation had gone beyond a simple search for answers. They were now in the middle of a battle they hadn't prepared for, and the stakes had never been higher. Everyone they had trusted was either dead, betrayed them, or was working for the other side. The conspiracy wasn't just about keeping secrets, it was about power, control, and keeping the world from ever knowing the truth. And now, the family was at the mercy of forces far greater than they could fight alone. The clock was ticking, and they knew one thing for sure: no one was coming to save them. The world outside the house felt miles away. The family was trapped, surrounded by the cold, ever-tightening grip of a conspiracy that had been lurking in the shadows for years. They had reached the point of no return. Every corner of their lives had been touched by the darkness they had uncovered. The threats had escalated, their trust betrayed, and now, the only thing left to do was face the people behind the curtain, the ones who had manipulated them all. It had to end here. They couldn't run anymore. But the final confrontation would not be what they expected. The last piece of the puzzle came in the form of a sealed envelope, slipped under the door in the dead of night. It was addressed to the mother, but the handwriting was unfamiliar. The moment she opened it, a strange calm washed over her, a calm that could only be the result of an inevitable truth finally being laid bare. The letter inside wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. An invitation to the place where everything had started. The facility. The place where Project Genesis had been born. The place where their mother's secrets had been buried. With no time to waste and the walls closing in faster than they could react, the family made the decision to go. They had no choice but to face what they had been avoiding for so long. As they piled into the car, each of them felt the weight of the unknown bearing down on them, knowing this could be the last time they'd see the world as they knew it. The headlights cut through the night, the road ahead dark and endless, like the maze they had been trying to escape from all this time. When they finally reached the facility, it was eerily quiet, a silent monument to the horrors it had witnessed. The building stood tall against the night sky, a towering structure that seemed to pulse with its own secrets. The family entered through the back, a dimly lit hallway stretching out in front of them. The air inside was thick with the scent of something stale, something long abandoned. But there was no turning back now. They moved through the halls, their footsteps echoing in the silence, until they reached a door at the very end of the corridor. Behind it lay the answers they had been desperately searching for. As the door creaked open, the room inside was bathed in a pale, sterile light, and at the center of it all stood the man who had been pulling the strings from the very beginning. He wasn't just some figure from the past, he was the mastermind. The one who had orchestrated everything, from their mother's involvement in Project Genesis to the hidden twin, to the lies that had consumed their lives. He turned slowly as they entered, his eyes cold and calculating. There was no recognition, no remorse in his gaze, only the quiet assurance of a man who had already won. "I knew you would come," he said, his voice calm, almost resigned. "It was always part of the plan." The family stood frozen, their minds racing. They had never seen him before, yet somehow, his face felt familiar, like something they had seen in their mother's old photographs. The realization hit hard. He was the one responsible for everything. The one who had created the situation that had ensnared them all. But as the mother's gaze locked onto his, a chilling thought surfaced: this man wasn't just their enemy. He was family. The man smiled, sensing their shock. "Did you really think this was about your mother? Or even your hidden twin? This goes far beyond your family. It's about the future. Control. The kind of control that only a few people can ever have. And I've already won. I've been in control of this from the start." The pieces began to fall into place as he revealed the true scale of the conspiracy. Project Genesis wasn't just a failed experiment, it was a plan to genetically manipulate people for the purposes of creating a new, controlled class of individuals. Their mother had been one of the early subjects, part of a larger plan to test the effects of genetic alterations on human beings. But it wasn't just about science. It was about power. And as the man's story unfolded, it became clear that their mother wasn't just a victim. She had been complicit, a willing participant in the darker aspects of the project. The mother's face twisted with regret, the weight of her past catching up to her in the worst possible way. She had never wanted this for her children, but the decisions she had made years ago, the choices she had made to protect them, had led them here. The pain in her eyes was unmistakable. She had been running from this truth for decades. And now, it was staring them all in the face. But then came the twist that no one had seen coming. As the man stepped forward, a sharp, cold smile spreading across his face, he pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small, folded photograph. He held it out to the mother, and as she took it, her blood ran cold. The image was old, worn around the edges, but unmistakable. It was a photo of her, her twin sister, and someone else. Someone they had all overlooked. It was their father. The man who had disappeared from their lives when they were children. The man they had always assumed had simply walked away. But the truth was far darker. Their father wasn't just absent, he had been part of this twisted experiment too. He was the architect of Project Genesis. He had played a role in its creation, in its execution, and in the manipulation of their family. The entire foundation of their lives had been built on a lie. Everything they thought they knew about their past was a carefully constructed illusion, designed to keep them in the dark. The shock of this revelation hit like a thunderclap, and for a moment, no one could speak. The family stood there, processing the staggering betrayal, the realization that their entire existence had been shaped by a conspiracy so vast, so powerful, that they had never had a chance. Their mother, their father, Sarah, the people they had trusted, none of them had been innocent. And now, they were faced with a decision that would change everything. But before they could react, the man's voice sliced through the silence once more. "You think this is over? You think uncovering the truth changes anything? You've only just scratched the surface. The real game is about to begin, and now you're all part of it." Suddenly, the doors behind them slammed shut, and the room plunged into darkness. The family's breath hitched, their hearts pounding in their chests. They were trapped, caught in a web they couldn't escape. The man's final words echoed in their minds, a chilling reminder that the conspiracy they had uncovered was only the beginning. And as the lights flickered back on, the truth hit harder than any revelation before: there was no escape. The silence in the room was almost suffocating, the tension so thick that it felt like they could reach out and touch it. The family, still reeling from the revelation of their father's involvement in the conspiracy and the dark truth of Project Genesis, stood in a tight circle, struggling to process everything they had just uncovered. The walls around them seemed to pulse with an unseen energy, the weight of their discovery heavy in the air. It was the kind of truth that could tear families apart, and yet, in this moment, they were united by something stronger, something more enduring than the lies that had shaped their lives. But the question remained: what now? What could they do with the pieces of their shattered past, with the truth that had cost them everything? The man, the mastermind who had orchestrated the events leading them here, stood in front of them, a silent figure in the shadows. His words had been chilling, his power undeniable. But despite the overwhelming odds, there was something inside the family that refused to break. They were done running. They were done hiding. They had faced the darkness, uncovered the hidden truths, and now it was time to make a choice, to stand and fight for the future they still had, or to crumble under the weight of the past. In that moment, it wasn't about taking down the system, or uncovering more secrets, it was about finding peace. The mother, still holding the photograph, finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, raw with the years of guilt and regret that had consumed her, but there was a strength in it now that hadn't been there before. I've lived my whole life running from this, from the choices I made, from the mistakes I can never take back. But I can't change what's been done. What I can do is protect what's left of my family. I've spent too long hiding from the truth. And now, it's time to face it. Her words hung in the air, and for the first time, there was a sense of resolution in the room. She wasn't running anymore. They weren't running anymore. The time for hiding was over. The family exchanged looks, the weight of their shared experience connecting them in a way that words couldn't fully express. They weren't going to let the past define them, but they weren't going to forget it either. They had all been betrayed by their parents, by each other, by the people they thought they could trust. But they had survived. They had found the truth, no matter how ugly it was. And now, they had a choice. The legacy of Project Genesis would always be a part of them, but it didn't have to control their future. In a final act of defiance, the mother turned to the man who had once been a shadowy figure in their lives, the architect of their pain. "This ends here," she said, her voice steady, unyielding. "You may have started this, but we're the ones who get to finish it." The man didn't move, didn't flinch. He knew he had lost, in the deepest way possible. He had spent years pulling strings, manipulating lives, but in the end, it was their love for each other, their will to fight for the truth, that had been stronger than anything he could control. With one last look, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness from which he had come, leaving them standing in the silence of their victory. As they walked away from the facility, there was a strange sense of peace that began to settle over them. It wasn't the kind of peace that came from having all the answers, because they didn't have all the answers. There were still so many questions left unanswered, so many things they would never fully understand. But what they did have now was the freedom to choose their own path. They didn't have to live in the shadow of the past any longer. They could finally look toward the future, with all its unknowns, and make it their own. Yet, as they drove away from the place that had been the center of so much pain, there was still something lingering in the air, a sense that this wasn't truly over. The conspiracy had been unraveled, the dark figures in their lives had been exposed, but there was still one question that refused to be answered. Who else was watching? The world outside their family was still full of shadows, full of hidden agendas. And as they reached the edge of the town, the mother glanced in the rearview mirror, her heart skipping a beat. A dark car had pulled onto the highway behind them, just as they were about to turn the corner. They didn't recognize the car, but it was following them, its headlights glowing dimly in the distance. Her hand tightened on the wheel, her thoughts racing, but she didn't say a word. The others in the car had seen it too, and for a moment, everything seemed to stop. The past had finally caught up with them. Or maybe it never had really left. As the car followed them down the road, a chill ran down their spines, the question echoing in their minds: had they truly escaped? Or was there more to the story that they hadn't yet uncovered? The road stretched ahead, dark and endless. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, they were ready to face whatever it held. The past might have shaped them, but it would no longer control them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And with that thought, they pressed on, leaving the past behind, but knowing full well that the story, like the darkness, was far from over. And somewhere, in the distance, a shadow watched them, waiting for the next chapter to begin. As the screen faded to black, a final message flashed across the screen, leaving the audience to reflect on everything they had just experienced. The truth is never finished. It only changes shape.